Welcome, and thank you for joining me tonight. Tonight, we're setting sail, not across a great ocean, but across time, into the winding stone streets and olive grove hillsides of ancient Greece. When we think of this place, our minds often drift to gleaming statues, lofty philosophy, and the clinking of amphorae in candlelit symposiums. And those things existed, but so did dirty sandals, crowded homes, relentless routines, and the quiet struggles of those whose names were never carved into stone. This evening, we'll lie quietly in the dust of a bustling polis, where everyday life was ruled not just by the gods, but by the grind of survival. Then we'll rise to follow one of Greece's most legendary sons, Alexander the Great, a figure of towering ambition and complexity. After that, we'll descend into a whispering cavern where the famed oracle at Delphi spoke in riddles. And finally, we'll recline, figuratively, beside the elite, exploring the quiet decadence and subtle pressures of Athenian high society. You don't need to remember it all. You don't need to think too hard. Let the words guide you. Let the past settle around you like the dusk over the Aegean Sea. You're not expected to stay awake. You're only expected to drift, gently, calmly, through a world long gone, and yet somehow still familiar. Let's begin. Imagine waking to the sound of footsteps on packed earth outside your door. There's no glass window to look through, only a wooden shutter you nudge open, revealing the soft light of early morning and the faint bleating of goats in the distance. You're in a small Athenian home, 1 or 2 rooms. At most, the walls are made of sun-baked mud brick, painted white with lime. The floor is hard, uneven. A low fire pit still smells faintly of last night's stew. You are not a philosopher. You are not a warrior. You are not a playwright whose name will echo through marble amphitheaters. You are an average citizen. Or perhaps not even a citizen at all. Perhaps a medic, a foreign resident, or a slave. Either way, your day begins with motion, with duty, with routine. Your breakfast is humble. Bread dipped in olive oil, perhaps a fig. No coffee, no rich meals, just enough to carry you through the next hours of labor. The streets are narrow, winding, occasionally slick with waste or loose rubble. You pass others, merchants arranging baskets, potters firing kilns, women gathering water from the fountain house. Life is mostly outside here. Indoors is for rest. Outdoors is for everything else. The agora, or marketplace, bustles by mid-morning, not with shouting, but with a hum. Quiet negotiations, chickens squawking, the ring of metal tools. If you're lucky, you have a small stand. If not, you're carrying your goods on foot, trying to sell enough to afford a few measures of grain. And if you are a woman, your world is smaller still. Respectable women remain largely in the home, managing the household, weaving, tending to children. To be seen too often outside is frowned upon. There's a rhythm to the day. Sunlight dictates time. No clocks, just the shadows shifting across whitewashed walls. Work ends when the light fades. Meals are simple. Bread again, maybe lentils, cheese, olives. Meat is rare, a luxury, saved for festivals or offerings. There are no baths with marble columns. You may wash with a basin and cloth. You may go to sleep on a straw mat, the air thick with the scent of hearth smoke and oil lamps. You live surrounded by greatness, by temples and names and stories, but you are not part of them. You hear them. You see the statues, but your life is dust and wood and the rhythm of what must be done. And yet, there is beauty in the soft hum of evening, in the distant sound of a flute, in the painted walls of a neighbor's home, chipped but colorful, in the way the moonlight makes shadows of the olive trees dance like phantoms against the hills. This was not a world of grandeur for most. It was a world of repetition, of effort, of resilience, a world where survival was its own philosophy, practiced not with words, but with worn hands and patient hearts. Was ancient grace, not just the idea of it, but the daily, dusty, enduring truth of it. Picture a morning in Pella, the capital of ancient Macedonia. The air is cooler here, sharper than the warm breath of southern Greece. In the palace, a child is being dressed, not in luxury, but in readiness. He is Alexander, son of King Philip II. He will one day be called great, though he could not have known it then. He was taught to ride horses before he could write, taught to swing a sword before his voice deepened. His education was not just in battle, but in philosophy. His tutor, a man named Aristotle. Imagine a young boy, perhaps 11, sitting on a stone bench beneath a tree. The branches cast dappled shadows across his knees as Aristotle speaks, not with thunder, but with thoughtful, measured tones. They talk not just of science or ethics, but of purpose, of legacy, of what it means to live well and what it means to rule. Alexander absorbed it all, but he was not gentle. Even as a teenager, there was fire in his posture. When he was 12, legend says, he tamed the untamable horse Bucephalus, not through force, but by noticing that the animal was afraid of its own shadow. He turned the horse's face toward the sun and rode, not because he wanted applause, but because he already expected it. As his father conquered city after city in the fractured Greek world, Alexander watched, learned, waited, and when Philip was assassinated, suddenly, brutally, at the height of his power, Alexander did not hesitate. At just 20 years old, he stepped into his father's sandals. Not with shouting, not with ceremony, but with a controlled, immediate assumption of leadership. The year was 336 BCE. Within 2 years, Alexander crossed Hellespont, the narrow strait separating Europe from Asia. His goal was no small skirmish. He aimed to bring down the Persian Empire, a kingdom that had ruled for centuries, vast and wealthy. But he didn't charge like a berserker. He moved with discipline, with formation. His army, though small by Persian standards, was tightly trained, relentlessly drilled, and utterly loyal. At the Battle of Issus, he personally led the charge that broke the Persian line. He didn't order from the back, he rode at the front, sword raised, eyes fixed on the enemy king, Darius III. Darius fled, and Alexander continued, from Syria to Egypt, from Babylon to Persepolis. Alexander swept across the ancient world like a calm storm. Cities opened their gates to him. Some resisted, but not for long. He built new cities, Alexandrias, many of them designed to spread Greek culture and administrative control, not just conquest, but legacy. He adopted Persian dress at times, married a Persian noblewoman, welcomed soldiers and scholars from across lands, not because he wanted to become someone else, but because he wanted to become everything else. His greatest battle came at Gaugamela, where he faced Darius once more. Again, he led from the front. Again, Darius fled. This time, his empire crumbled behind him. But conquest is not peace, and glory does not rest. Alexander pressed onward, into Bactria, into India, past elephants and rivers no Greek had ever crossed. His army, weary but loyal, began to strain. They longed to return, not to comfort, but to familiarity, to home. In 323 BCE, in the palace of Babylon, Alexander died. He was just 32 years old. No great battle took him, no betrayal, just a fever. A quiet ending for a man whose life had echoed across continents. No one knew what to do with his body. His empire fragmented almost immediately. But his memory, his image, remained. He had not been a gentle man, nor a peaceful one. But he had been curious, disciplined, ambitious in the way mountains are tall. Not because they try, but because they are. Tonight, you don't need to follow every campaign. You don't need to remember every name. Just imagine a young man sitting beneath a tree, listening, learning, preparing to walk into history not with a shout, but with steady, unstoppable steps. That was Alexander. Imagine yourself walking a narrow path, winding gently up the slopes of Mount Parnassus. The morning mist clings to the stone, and the scent of wild thyme drifts through the air. You are approaching Delphi, the navel of the ancient world, as the Greeks believed. A place not of markets or war, but of revelation. Here stood the temple of Apollo, perched on a hillside in quiet defiance of time, where the veil between mortals and the divine was set too thin. And at its heart was the Pythia, the oracle of Delphi, a woman not chosen by birth or status, but by her ability to embody the voice of Apollo himself. Step softly now. The temple is quiet, save for the occasional sound of sandals against stone. Pilgrims wait in line, merchants, generals, kings, each bearing gifts, wrapped in cloth or nestled in gold. Offerings to the god, yes, but also payment for insight. The Pythia is unseen at first, hidden in the Ataton, the inner chamber. She is prepared for the ritual, bathing in the Castalian spring, chewing sacred laurel leaves, inhaling the fumes that rise mysteriously from a crack in the earth. These vapors, still debated by modern scholars, were said to lift her mind from the present and open it to the divine. She does not speak in riddles by choice. It is the form that God takes when entering her. Her answers are ambiguous, shaped like poetry, like dreams. A visitor enters, kneeling, asking a question. Should I go to war? Should I take this path? Will my child live? And the Pythia answers, an empire will fall, she might say. A great victory will be yours, but beware the price. You will cross water. But whether it is safe, the gods do not say. The ambiguity is not confusion. It is deliberate. A divine hedge. The priests, too, are nearby, interpreting, translating, guiding. The oracle is not a lone figure. She is surrounded by structure, by caretakers and scribes, by those who record and repeat her words, spreading them across Greece like seeds in the wind. Delphi itself became more than a religious site. It was a political power center. City-states consulted the oracle before major decisions. Treaties were drafted here. Colonies founded with her blessing. Even wars paused momentarily for Apollo's word. And yet, the Pythia was not lavishly kept. She lived a quiet, ritual, heavy life. Respected, yes, but not exalted as royalty. She remained a vessel, not a leader. It is said that over 100 different women served as Pythia over the centuries. Some young, some older, all sworn to chastity. All tasked with channeling something beyond themselves, repeatedly, in silence. But over time, the oracle's influence faded. Rome rose. New gods came. The fissures grew quiet. The sanctuary fell into ruin. Stones repurposed, names forgotten. Today, Delphi is still there. Stillness now reigns over its scattered columns. The wind carries only echoes. Tourists walk the stone paths, but they do not kneel. They do not ask. And yet, if you were to stand at the edge of the temple's remains and close your eyes, you might still sense something. A hum beneath the earth. The breath of something ancient. Not loud, not demanding, just waiting. So as you lie here, listening, breathing softly, think of the Pythia wrapped in robes, inhaling the earth's secrets and offering not answers, but questions disguised as truth. The rhythm of the oracle was not certainty, it was suggestion, a reminder that knowledge, too, can be a mystery. Picture a private courtyard at dusk. The air is warm, but not stifling. A brazier glows faintly in one corner, perfuming the air with cedarwood smoke. Torches flicker, casting gentle shadows on plastered walls, painted with geometric murals and mythological scenes. This is no common home. You are among the elite of Athens. Not royalty, for Athens had none, but citizens of wealth, culture, and political influence. Men who spoke in measured tones and made decisions that rippled across city walls and beyond. Tonight, a symposium is being held. The word itself means drinking together, but it was not drunkenness that defined the evening. It was structure. A quiet ceremony of thought, wit, and pleasure, layered in rules and social codes. You would enter not through the front, but through a side room, known as the Andron, a space reserved for male guests. The floor is mosaic, cool to the touch. Cushions are arranged in a U, shape along low couches. Each guest reclines, propped on an elbow, facing inward. A servant pours wine, diluted with water in two painted craters, large bowls. Drinking undiluted wine would be considered crude, even barbaric. A symposiarch, or host, sets the pace. How many cups per round? When to pause? The wine is not for escape. It is for rhythm. Music plays. A young man with a lyre sings a slow, drifting tune. The conversation wanders, but not aimlessly. It may begin with politics, quietly. Who's rising? Who's falling? What strategy Pericles might pursue? Then it might drift toward poetry, Homer's verses recited from memory, or new lines composed in jest. And of course, philosophy, but not the lofty lectures of the agora. Here, it is smaller, more personal. What is love? Someone might ask. Is it desire or absence? The room leans into the question, not to answer it, but to circle around it like dancers. There may be games, too. Tossing wine dregs from a cup at a target, a playful contest. Laughter, but never too loud. This is not a tavern. This is performance, of intellect, of grace, of control. Women, if present, are hetairai, companions trained not just in music and dance, but in conversation. They are not wives. Wives remained in the home. Apart from these gatherings, hetairai were chosen for their ability to engage, to match wits, to inhabit this space fluidly. The evening stretches on. As the wine deepens, so too does the talk. Some voices grow quieter, others more animated, and somewhere in the distance, the city hums on. Fires burn low. Dogs bark faintly. The symposium ends not with a toast, but with a slowing, a natural tapering, like a tide pulling away from the shore. Guests rise, robes straightened, sandals fastened. They return to homes where servants wait, and dreams follow shortly behind. But for a few hours, they existed in a curated world. A world where power was not enforced, but implied. Where reputation was shaped not by decree, but by grace. Where the greatest weapon was the word. This was the rhythm of the elite, not louder than the rest of Athens, just better dressed, better fed, and more carefully observed. As you lie here now, still and warm, imagine reclining in that soft torchlight, the scent of figs and smoke, the soft hum of a lyre, the gentle rise and fall of voices that never quite needed to shout. The symposium is over. and all that remain is quiet. And now we return, slowly, gently, from the courtyards of Athens and the mountains of Delphi, from battlefield whispers and humble homes. You've traveled far tonight. You walked in the sandals of the ordinary Greek, where daily life was measured not in monuments but in chores, in bread, in the rhythm of sun and soil. You followed the steady rise of Alexander, a man who saw no limit but the horizon. You listened to the cryptic murmurings of the oracle, rising with the mist and sinking back into the earth. And you reclined among the elite, where power wore robes and spoke in riddles over watered wine. It is easy to think of ancient Greece in polished stone and golden sunlight, eternal, unchanging. But beneath the myths were people, people with aches in their feet, doubts in their hearts, and dreams not so different from your own. What survives is not just the marble columns or the scrolls of Plato, but the rhythm, the quiet echo of lives lived, of choices made, of songs sung under moonlight. And now that rhythm is yours. It moves with your breath, steady, gentle, unhurried. Let the past fade, not with urgency, but like embers dimming in a brazier. Let the voices soften, the lanterns flicker low. There is no more to do, no more to learn, only the comfort of stillness. Tonight, you've wandered through time, and now you can rest. Good night, and thank you for listening.